hey, the podcast has begun. Thanks a lot for coming down and chatting with me, man.
Sounds very good.
Yeah, so you reached out to me on Facebook. You're promoting a book that you wrote. What's the story with that?
Oh, the title of my book is called The Inspirational Story of Ethan Poetic, Chronicles of Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency.
Okay, cool.
It's about my story as a walking living miracle, where 12 years ago I was involved with a near fatal car accident, where I had a 99% chance of death versus 1% chance of life.
Okay, that's wild, man. So, like, we're gonna unpack that a bit for sure, but I guess my first question would be, like, did you have a background of writing before you decided to start this project, or how did that come about?
I used to write poetry, like songs, special speeches, and different things for myself on an individual level.
Yeah. Prior
to that, I would write in school.
Okay.
And I've always wanted to write a book. It wasn't until spring of 2020, after I passed my spring semester of college at Mills University, the Verona's family, as we were eating lunch together in their backyard, they wanted to encourage me to write an autobiography about my story. At first, I just wasn't feeling comfortable because I just wasn't ready to put the V in being vulnerable. But they didn't want to take no for an answer, and I got started. Part of the process was just being comfortable to just give everything I got, have the vision of crossing the finish line, and making sure I tell my story, tell my narrative, and don't hold anything back.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, I guess we'll get into the point here. You said you almost died. You had a 99% chance of not surviving. Is that accurate?
Yes.
So what happened? Take me through the day before this accident.
Let's see. It's a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
Me, my aunt, her fiance, and two of her grandchildren were driving past the shopping outlets such as Tanger Outlets, Rockville Outlets on Route 30. And the last thing I remember seeing is a Hess gas station. And then sometime later, I wake up in Lancashire General Hospital in the ICU unit with my I had IVs in my veins. I had tubes inside my ribs. I had a left black eye. I lost a lot of weight and blood. I had a tornado aura. I had a fractured collarbone because our driver drove into a 18-wheeler going in the opposite direction.
Gotcha. So you were a passenger in the vehicle.
Yeah, I was right behind the driver.
Okay.
That's what made me become a mathematical equation. And unfortunately, he passed away instantly.
Yeah.
I suffered a lot of injuries. My cousin next to me, who was a toddler, passed away.
Yeah.
And then the person next to him, he didn't suffer any injuries, just more psychological. Unfortunately for my aunt, she was the passenger next to the driver. She suffered some broken bones.
Yeah.
I try, it's like a situation where I'm there when it happened, but I don't remember it happened.
Right.
It's like some people say the concussion I suffered may have been a blessing. To not remember that's something that's so horrific. It's like I had to use more of my imagination, do research on what actually took place on that Saturday afternoon with the police directing traffic, cleaning up the debris, writing the police report, and bringing out the yellow tape. Then it's the fire department using the jaws of life to cut the car in half.
Yeah. What kind of car was it?
It was one of those cube cars.
Oh, like the little smart cars.
Yes.
Sheesh. Yeah, those are quite small.
And then can people imagine the ambulance taking my pulse from my neck to see if there's any blood circulation?
Yeah.
Blood circulation going on, or blood flow, or if I even have a pulse, because I was supposed to die within 3 to 5 minutes of internal bleeding.
So what's like the road to recovery look like for that?
It was very long, daunting, and there was a lot of extra stuff along the way. Like, for example, when the car accident happened, it's OA in the middle of Paradise, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
That's at least a 35-minute ride to Lancashire General Hospital. And then from there, it's just an emergency surgery is done is high risk.
Right.
And then from there, it's just some people thought I wasn't going to make it. They did the surgery. I was told one nurse who was working there thought I died on the operating table. And once her shift was over, she cried hysterically because she couldn't believe it. Mm. And then, they kept me on all these medicines. They weren't sure if I was going to wake up. And then I woke up, cloud 9. And next thing I know, there's this woman standing in front of the door, crying tears of joy that I made it alive. But that's just one part to surviving the car accident. The recovery process included going to Lancaster Rehabilitation on Good Drive near Women and Babies Hospital, where it included occupational rehab, speech therapy, physical therapy. I'm used to, at that time period prior to the car accident, being able to grab my own bags, groceries. But here I'm at Lancaster Rehabilitation, struggling to pick up a beanbag off the floor.
Right.
It's one of those beanbags you use for cornhole. And, the purpose of that physical therapy was to rebuild the muscle memory.
Right.
Because you got to start somewhere. The speech was just off. Like, I'm used to being proficient in how I speak. Now everything's just more basic. Then I got to sound out these words. Then I got to finish sentences. Then I got to do these neck exercises. As I'm starting to make progress and I'm still underweight, I faced another challenge where I was in the middle eating lunch. The banana wouldn't go down my throat. It came up. The employee saw it, told her supervisor, and that's when I had to have emergency surgery for a feeding tube. And for several months, I was not allowed to eat or drink anything by mouth, and the consequences are pneumonia, which will make everything much worse.
Right.
And, that was a daunting task of, going from eating anything to now my mouth is just drooling. To the point where if I go to sleep at night, I got to make sure I have a towel underneath my mouth.
Right.
And then for that fractured collarbone, only thing I could do for sleep was sleep on my back on my right side.
Gotcha.
And then that concussion was just making me real sensitive to light. Because lights give off rays in different levels.
Yeah.
And then I remember just the one thing the nurse and doctors were saying to me is, I got to start walking more often or else they're going to put me on blood thinners. Because I was so used to being in a wheelchair, but I guess they didn't want me to settle on doing that.
Yeah. So what how long was the entire process until, you were able to walk on your own, eat on your own again?
For eating, it took at least 5 months. Okay. It could have been longer if I didn't make sure I got second opinions from an independent ear, nose, and throat doctor near Park City Mall.
Gotcha. I guess a better question would be, how long was it until you were just completely done with all the different therapies? Or are you still going?
I don't go to the therapies anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, once they saw that I was making enough strength, the nurse stopped coming to my house to end the physical therapy at Lancaster Rehabilitation. I got discharged from there. And then I got taken home. Then I faced another challenge because they changed up my medicine that I was taking through the feeding tube. And it caused a setback, making me worse to the point where I couldn't sit up. I'm hunched over.
Jeez.
Then my mom had to call the doctor for the emergency appointment. He saw me, and within 10 minutes, he's like, we got to get you in the hospital right away. And they had to put me back on the original medicine I was on and revive me back to life.
Yeah.
There were a couple times or one time where I just wasn't feeling so well. I had to call the ambulance on myself while at home. It was just daunting. Like, my body just didn't feel right until they figure out this is what's going wrong. Then I also remember the day I was finally able to eat again.
Yeah.
And that was involved passing the chalk test where I had to swallow like this chalk to see if it goes down. Mm-hmm. And it finally did. Then they told me to start off with the liquids. then soft beverages, then soft food, medium soft, meats, grains, produce. And then eventually people start taking me out for lunch, dinner, and sometimes breakfast.
Yeah.
And I didn't even see the bill, but I saw, a good appetite.
Gotcha. So how old were you when this happened?
I was in my early 20s at the time.
Okay. How old are you now?
I'm 35.
Okay.
In about 2 weeks, I'll turn 36.
Gotcha. Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
By the time this comes out, I guess you'll be 36. But that's wild, man. Sheesh. So, I mean, I'd imagine there's not to assume, but is the book about like how you came to recover after this, both mentally and physically, or what is it? Kind of the whole story.
My book involves a lot of things. Like it explains a lot, starting with the chronicles of adversities I faced in my life. Growing up through the education system, me being a former student athlete that involves sports, the relationships I built and lost along the way, and the resiliency that I decided to rise with grace when I face things instead of looking to start a pity party.
Yeah.
And my book is about, not only the journey, it also has the backstory of when I used to live in Coatesville, PA, home of the Coatesville Area Senior High School Red Raiders. I talk some of the stories about growing up in a single parent household, men leaving me.
Yeah.
Then there's that transition in the middle of my 8th grade of going from Coatesville to Lancaster. And then I talk about, other things along with, some serious stuff that involves, courts, some things that deal with gun violence, drugs.
Yeah.
It's not a situation where I was intending to be involved with that stuff. It's just more of certain people that were the adults during that time period that are supposed to make responsible choices for kids, just wasn't making them. And unfortunately, I went against the grain, did the opposite. But I couldn't say that for some of my siblings because I see the effects on them now where they're not wanting to battle the situation, even though I'm an inspirational person around the world.
Yeah.
But I realize a person has to want to come back from what they overcame. They have to want the help and the resources for mental health. Because I realize if a person doesn't take care of their mental health, it doesn't matter how much money you make, what type of car you drive, clothes you have, that foundation is broken, and you'll take the other people down with you. And we've seen it with movie stars, rappers, actors, public officials, because your mental health is key towards wealth. And it doesn't always have to include money. It's about cultivating, making an impact, and preserving your legacy long before you're gone, to leave a blueprint for many, many generations down the road to see.
Gotcha. Do you have kids?
As of now, I don't have no kids.
Yeah.
I don't have no girlfriend, no wife, and of course, I don't have no pending paternity test.
Okay. Gotcha. I was just speaking on like legacy. It's an interesting thing I think about a lot. Like, what do I want people to, do I want people to think about me after I'm gone? I struggle. I don't want to say I struggle with it, but I struggle with the thought of like, do I actually want that? You said you want to leave a legacy behind.
Yeah, it's just in my situation, I'll just say what I talk about in the book relates to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I talk about what started single-parent households was basically the government was giving two different messages to people. They were giving the people of color the message of, hey, we'll give you your women's rights. We'll give you these welfare benefits, but you can't have a man live with you. But as a result of that, we face a dilemma now where a lot of single-parent households and some, not all, but some women of color haven't realized that you can't take the bait. You cannot take everything at face value because a woman's legacy is about holding the family together, being the matriarch of the family, because you get more done building together than building alone. And then they were telling people of non-color, We'll give you your benefits. We'll give you your welfare. We're going to give you the keys towards success of how you can further your education and you can have a man live with you. And once those two different messages were like told, the people who are, people of color and everything else as a whole grain, you see a lot of cohabitation going on because people think they can get over on the government with the welfare, but people got to realize that's only 10% of the world's wealth. Because the majority of people who are on welfare don't leave a house, a car. They have this poverty mindset, poverty lifestyle, poverty language to where they think they're entitled to something at taxpayers' expense. When the reality is that when you're married with somebody, you can build things together that no one could take away, and you can transfer it down to the next 2 to 3 generations, creating generational wealth. A person has to be willing to step outside their comfort zone. And what I've seen in families, that want to get off the welfare, is kind of like the analogy of crabs inside a barrel. Not every crab wants to be inside there because they know they're destined for the ocean. And unfortunately, there's some people who want to continue to pull them back. And eventually, a person's going to reach a crossroad where they're going to have to decide, do I got to distance myself or stay with the crowd? And there's some people who don't want to give into the peer pressure and want better. And that's what causes divisions in some families, because some people think somebody's better than them or because they have more status, more privilege. But that's not always the case. They just want a better quality of life. They want a better quality of opportunities for the next generations before them. Because I remember one of my African ancestors going back to Cambridge, Maryland, and Virginia, they were not making money. The slave masters were making, at that time period, thousands of dollars, which now equates to millions, if not billions of dollars in untaxed free labor, where they did not experience being a homeowner, getting a GED or education, or any other amenities of a USA citizenship. They were sacrificing, and to this day, the descendants of the slave masters are still reaping the rewards of colored people's back. And it's important to know that history, because it's not always important to listen to a music song. It's about knowing our history and knowing how we can move forward.
Right.
And I come from a diverse background where my grandfather and several family members from Puerto Rico left the island because they became USA citizenship, because the government originally wanted to have more people to choose for war. And then from there, it's just opportunities. And then I do have European people in my family, both immediate and distant, because not everyone wanted to follow the Jim Crow laws. And also people did not want to see people oppressed because they saw the damaging effects.
Yeah. Gotcha. Interesting. So, I mean, we can definitely, kind of stay within that world of what's in the book, but I'm also very curious, just from a logistics perspective, how do you publish a book? Well, take me through the process. You have the concept, you write it all out. Are you selling it to different publishing companies, or how does that work?
Well, my journey started with some people referring me to like self-publish. They refer me to publishers, but I realized those deals weren't in my favor. For example,
Gotcha.
Let's say you have to pay a publisher $5,000 for your copyright, barcodes, ISB numbers, Adobe Illustrator, maybe a professional picture.
Yeah.
Several rounds of editing. But the problem with that is not only helping you make the book, they're also getting money out of your royalties for everything that sells online.
Gotcha.
And that doesn't even include the hardcover, ebook, or the audiobook.
Right.
I ended up choosing the path of being a self-publisher because I had two choices between Ingram Spark and Amazon. Amazon was more exclusive with only Amazon, like people who have those type of accounts. Ingram Spark has a global distribution deal for print on demand for Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, and many others. And that was a better deal for me because let's say someone's a self-publisher, all they got to do is just form their own team. Let's say their budget is $2,000. So they can buy their ISB numbers by the bulk, buy their barcodes by the bulk, hire a teacher, like someone in the English department who has a master's degree to help edit, do at least 4 rounds of editing. Then have somebody do the Adobe Illustrator. And then from there, you can have a professional picture taken. Most professional people may require you to pay maybe $50 and you choose out of 5 pictures, or they do a package deal. It depends on a person's preference. Yeah. Then of course you get to choose, 1 or 2 forwards. But since I'm an independent self-publisher, I decided to go with 8 forwards for my book because my story's too good to just have 1 or 2.
Gotcha.
I had help from family members that are immediate, a couple of people from Ancestry that I connected with,
nice
people at Mills University, a dear friend, and of course, my former football and track coach, Matt Ortega. He was one of the guys who helped me with my transition here in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Because when I first moved here, I only knew 2 people, and sports was the outlet to help me transition here.
Gotcha.
And then you got to have people who write back cover reviews, have your autobiography ready. And it's best to have a business with your book, like a LLC.
Right.
Whether you want to do it for-profit or non-profit, because it's important to have that liability insurance.
Yep.
It's important to write things off. Some people use QuickBooks. Some people can do things manually.
Yeah.
When it comes to taxes, you can use TurboTax. And it's best to set up a bank account with a credit union who's more likely to give you a loan. Therefore, you can look at your invoices online.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a big fan of QuickBooks myself.
Yes.
I always encourage people to use it.
And then it's best to know what your pricing market is. Some people want to try to think they can be the best seller overnight, but that's not always the case, because in order to be a bestseller, you got to really have pre-sale orders out maybe 6 months to a year in advance. And that may require the help of a publishing company that's willing to do like a 50-50 deal where they'll help you get connected to the big radios, television stations, podcasts. In return, they'll still get a percentage of your books sales, whether it's online, downloads, mostly. When it comes to the audio version of my book, I'm going to do that through ACX. It's going to be available soon, probably this summer.
Okay, cool.
On Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. Basically, a person who has those accounts can listen to the book on there, and they pay for it directly. I will get my royalty share. It would just be business, because even though they're getting a larger portion, it's just a situation where ACX allows me to have 3 distribution deals instead of just going with 1.
Right.
Because let's say it's a 50-50 split, I get my 50, but since ACX is involved and the 3 other people, let's say ACX gets their 50% off the top, which should be 25. So now whoever that customer chooses out of those 3 entities, then that company gets their percentage. But then from there, it gets broken down even more, where that entity has to pay to keep everything uploaded and ready to use.
Right.
And, the other reason why I decided to go self-publishing, because one publishing company told me, we're going to send you this contract since we believe in your story. And I read the contract. Everything seemed good when they sent it to me in the PDF. And then from there, it was just the deal breaker was they said if I signed with them, they would get the lion's share's rights if they create a story out of my movie. And I just couldn't do that. I realized I couldn't allow someone to profit off of that. So I realized they already saw a multi-million-dollar potential deal off of me before I even saw them in person. It was just mostly a conversation in emails.
Right.
So I realized in the future I can create my own movie, soundtrack, and a documentary and own everything outright and have the right people on my team to make everything come to light.
Yeah, that's wild. So you said, is ACX like a kind of like an aggregate distributor for similar to like United Masters or DistroKid? Kind of, I don't know if you're familiar with them, like in the music world.
I heard of those because the difference is ACX is more for the audio version of the book.
Gotcha.
You mentioned the disco thing.
Yeah, DistroKid.
Yeah, that's more for music.
Right.
That's something that Chance the Rapper mentioned in his interview.
Yeah. Which
allows him to have more freedom with being independent, even though these record companies are still trying to propose it to him. But the thing is, if he signs a record deal, it'll take away some of his freedom, but at the same time, it'll take away him doing less legwork.
Yeah. I was just curious. I'm sorry to cut you off because you mentioned that, like, I understand that ACX is going to take a percentage off the top, but then you're saying that, like, iTunes, for example, is going to take percentages as well.
Well, they split their percentage. I get a certain percentage of my own.
Gotcha.
They had to split the other percentages amongst themselves.
Gotcha.
Because ACX is the middleman.
Right.
For both me and those other three companies.
Right. Interesting. Because I know it's different, I'd imagine, especially with royalties and stuff when it comes to collecting for music. I know more about music, obviously, than the audiobook, but I don't have. I use DistroKid, which, from what I understand, is a relatively similar business model to ACX, and they don't take any percentages for any of my stuff. So I was curious. I mean, I guess you kind of gone down this path, but have you thought about releasing it just purely on your own, like you can upload stuff onto Spotify or onto iTunes or on, you know what I mean? Like by yourself.
I thought about that.
Yeah.
But I realized that'd be just more legwork for me to do.
True.
And it would take longer to get the percentage of sales because then it would take a team of doing that. Right. It would require more marketing, promoting than me just using it on social media.
Yeah.
If I choose just one out of the three top audio books,
right,
then I felt like I may be missing sales and potential listeners.
Right. No, I mean, like you could upload it to all these different platforms. I'm just curious because, like, so the podcast, for example, is on Amazon, Apple, both podcasts and iTunes and all that other good stuff. And when I was originally setting it up, I found out that I could just manually release everything. But because I do episodes, I was like, oh, it's going to take forever. So I was just curious if there's another way that you could take your entire book and just release it by yourself, and then you don't have to worry about any percentages being taken out. But I guess that doesn't sound like the case here.
Well, it's just ACX, is the bridge.
Yeah.
To getting to those three people.
Yeah.
Because when you have an audiobook out, you can only do it with one person or like one company at a time.
Okay.
And the percentages weren't even as good.
Gotcha. So you're not allowed to upload to multiple different platforms on your own.
Well, I could, but that would require more work.
Gotcha.
And that would be like it would be a situation where the best example I can say is like it would have to be a situation where like Jay-Z has title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for example, instead of people going to iTunes or Spotify for his music to upload or stream,
right,
they go directly to him through Tidal.
Right.
Where he sold so much, he had to expand the space on a priority level because he anticipated sales, but those sales exceeded his expectations and the amount of coverage he was going to have.
Yeah.
That's what I compare myself into a situation where it would take that type of situation where it has to pay off in the long run. Right. Because I'm investing money for the copyright, the the recordings, the editing.
Yeah.
And I just want to make sure not only get the money back and make a profit, but more importantly, make an impact in people's life with my story, because they get to hear from me directly, the self-published author.
Yeah.
My book, the audio version can relate to people who are blind, who may not read.
Right.
It can inspire people who want to listen to something in the morning or at night, or a kid who can relate to me, or a teenager, former student athlete, a teacher who may be going through a rough day. Not to mention about education, like, for example, I remember as a kid, certain teachers and principals and librarians would tell kids to write their own book, but those adults in leadership positions never wrote their own books first.
Mm.
Now that I wrote my book, now administrators are referring the kids to me.
Yeah.
So that's how I bridged the gap there. And for certain kids to see someone who grew up in the same environment as them, community as them, they now see the blueprint. They also see a brighter future, because seeing is believing is one thing, but actually being near the person who actually done it and is living the fruits of the labor, that's even more inspiring.
I just, not to beat a dead horse here, but I just had a thought. Have you considered releasing your audiobook like as a podcast?
I thought about it.
Because you could monetize it and then it would go everywhere and then you wouldn't have to deal with any publishing issues.
I thought about it. It's just the question becomes, from a business perspective, how many sales can I generate?
Right.
Being independent is one thing, but when I deal with the other people, which allows me to bridge the gap to reach more listeners.
Right.
But at the same time, the ACX deal does allow me to pull out at any time, as long as I get, let's say, for example, 2 weeks to 30 days notice.
Yeah. I'm just trying to understand because the music publishing, I know it's not music, but like the publishing aspect of the two businesses that you're involved in and I'm involved in are very similar, right? So I'm just trying to kind of like conceptualize. I know you know what you're doing. I'm not saying that you don't.
The difference is with music, it requires licensing, sound, engineering.
Yeah. And
then you're competing against a lot of people. Right. Compared to audio versions, you're only competing against hundreds of people.
Oh, there's not that many audiobooks? Is that what you're saying?
There's audiobooks out there, but it's just some people don't promote it as much. Mm. Some people just do it for fun.
Gotcha.
Some people do it for music. Or someone who does it like as a profession, as a self-published author, which I'm doing.
Yeah.
Now I have a bigger audience that I can target.
Gotcha.
And then I can use my social media to market it. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, all I got to do is provide people the links. And it's up to them to, want to invest and make sure, for me, I just want to make sure I provide substance, clarity, and make sure that a person, when they listen to it, I got the nod of approval, the validation. Now they're going to want to refer that audiobook they just listened about me to somebody else.
Right. Gotcha.
And it's more about the experience for me with the potential listeners.
Right.
Because I want to make sure they get their money's worth, get their time's worth, and become a better version of themselves when they get done listening to it. It's kind of like you listen to a good music, you'll feel it resonate inside the heart and the mind. Mm-hmm. It's a situation where you feel that good vibe, that energy. Eventually, people will have parties. People might have a listening session. Yeah, that's how the type of energy I want to have with my audiobook.
Yeah.
Because I just want to make sure it makes an impact in a way that it can change people's lives, not only here in America, but also overseas, third world countries.
How much are you selling it for?
I haven't decided yet. I know.
Is it out yet?
Not yet.
Okay, gotcha.
It's not out. Once it is out, I'm going to make sure I do all the marketing, promoting. Right now, I just got to listen to a few more tracks, critique it. Yeah. If there's other parts I got to do over again, I'm going to do it over again. Then eventually I'm going to have to copyright it. Mm-hmm. own everything outright, as I always do. And then once I get that letter of certification from the Library of Congress, then it's time to distribute.
Gotcha. So are you selling is the physical copy out yet?
Yeah.
Okay,
My
gotcha.
books have been out since November 2022. I got
Okay, gotcha.
soft cover, hardcover with the laminated case,
Nice.
and the ebook. The difference is you can purchase online through Amazon,
Yeah.
Audible. Oops, not Audible. I meant to say Kobo, Target, Barnes & Noble, Walmart. All you have to do is type in the title of my book called The Inspirational Story of Ethan Poetic.
Yeah.
And it's available print on demand. Or you can contact me on my website or social media. Like my website is called ethanspeaks.com. You buy the book directly from me. You can pay me with Cash App, Venmo, PayPal. And I would just charge you just for the book and the shipping and handling. And I'll personally sign it, leave an autograph message, date it. Now you have memorabilia.
Yeah. I'll definitely have to get a copy when I try to not do any research on the guests, right? And then now after the fact, I would be very interested to read the book. So
Thank you.
I'll have to get a copy of it, and we'll put a link in the description where people can find it as well. Gotcha. So I just want to kind of jump around here a little bit. You said you grew up in Coatesville. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And you moved to Lancaster at what age?
As a teenager, I was in the middle of 8th grade. I remember like it was yesterday.
It's a rough time to move.
Yeah, like I didn't want to move, leave everything I had known.
Yeah.
Family, friends. Most of us on the football team and track future. I had signed up for the track team. Most of us were projected to start varsity by our 10th grade year because we had so much potential. Because just about everyone was not only quick but fast. Between me, Barton Palmer, Terrell, and Travis Tolan. Then you got Cadoza Jacks, Mike Brown, Alex Stone, Clarence Smith, and a few others. Like, we were that deep on the football team where no one could score a touchdown on us except 2 touchdowns all season. And, when we blew out teams within the first quarter.
What position did you play?
I was supposed to be the second string running back, but then on defense, they had me doing defensive end because I can get off the edge because I was shorter. So therefore, the left tackle or right tackle had to jump out and get me. But the thing is, that opened up a hole for the linebacker to meet the running back.
Gotcha.
And then there's a time where they put me at linebacker for one game. And then there's another time they put me at safety.
Gotcha.
But it was just more about the team's best interest because we all lived in the same school zone. Everybody knew everybody. And our families had known each other for well over 60 plus years. So it was already that natural chemistry, camaraderie. And, we were projected to do that. Unfortunately, things happen in life where I had to move up here. And, I think about the what if I just stayed down there. And, there's a lot of things I talk about in the book about, for example, I wasn't able to do, when I moved up here, I did 3 sports, football, wrestling, track and field for J.P. McCaskey High School.
Okay.
My freshman year. But again, it goes back to some of the bad choices certain adults were making. And one of the things that happened that changed my life was not only was I having a strange father, my biological father, but the man my mom was living with, he was involved with the drugs, the alcohol, and it just wasn't a healthy environment. It got to the point where social workers got involved. Instead of him picking up my sister when she would get dropped off from daycare or preschool, I had to do that for the last 2 years of my high school years. So that was the daunting sacrifice because my mom had to follow protocols or else we could get split up.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it because I felt like if it wasn't for that, I would have been in the newspaper much sooner. My legacy as a high school student athlete would have been more complete. Had my national signing day. make the coaches proud, win the Lakes 11 in league, gold medal for track, whether it's the 100, 200, 400, or relay team, compete in Penn relays. I probably would have been made the Hall of Fame, distinguished alumni. But I realized, there's a reason why it happened that way, but I didn't allow that to define me because I did end up becoming a 2-time college graduate. It's just my route to college was much different from everybody else.
Gotcha. So what do you do? Is the book sustaining you like as a full-time gig? Do you have another profession or career that you do?
I do a lot of things. Like I just have my books.
Yeah.
There's times where I'm at Walmart, Target, I'll be out and about, and then someone recognizes me from the newspaper, television, social media, and just want to buy the book off me right then and there because they want it signed.
Yeah.
Then they want to take a picture with me to enjoy the experience. Then it becomes a situation where I'm like, okay, I'm making some good money off of this, and people believe in me and want to support me.
Yeah.
But normally I still do my keynote speaking through my business called Ethan Poetic LLC. I work with the event coordinators or the assembly coordinators, whether it's in public schools, private schools, colleges. I spoke in Washington, D.C., Maryland,
very cool.
New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware. My passport is still good because it recently was renewed. And now I want to go overseas. I also will say my pricing, it's not one size fits all.
Yep.
Because I have to see where a person's budget is. Mm-hmm. Where, okay, let's say I want to see a certain fee for my speaking fee. May add some traveling. And then the books can be sold separately or combined. But not all deals are the same because I have to work with someone's budget and be more flexible.
Yeah.
Because not everyone's like looking for somebody like a Tony Robbins or Eric Thomas. Mm-hmm. They're looking for me, Ethan Poetic, because this is something that kids can relate to, experience it. Even their staff can listen to this and get something out of this. That you can overcome your adversities by turning them into your advantage.
Gotcha.
Well, normally the other thing I work with doing is working with kids with special needs or being a teacher assistant.
Okay.
And, the kids enjoy me to the point where when I come inside the school building, you don't have to get no introduction. They just run up into me and mob me.
Yeah.
Grabbing my shirt, giving hugs, the high fives.
Yeah, that must be nice.
What I get out of it is the smile on their faces, having those teachable moments where certain kids break down and cry over writing or not being able to stand out words, but I tell them, I went through this before as a kid. For the older kids, I could tell them, hey, I went through this as adversity, what we're coming from in my life, from the car accident. And that pretty much puts a light bulb in their mind, like, oh, he did do that.
They're not alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I realized most of the adversities and hardships that we face in life have already been overcame. Because I believe this earth is at least 2,000 years old. Therefore, there's plenty of stories to learn from where you see the good, the bad, those who overcame, and those who unfortunately did not come back from it. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of a personal, individual level wanting to do the work. And part of that work is remembering that feeling of how it felt to be hurt, disappointed, or something, and it overcame it. So now when a person is able to move forward, they remember that feeling, therefore they know how to make a better conscious decision.
All right.
The other thing I get out of it is just seeing the kids grow up. And I also was involved with a sports program with football, track, wrestling, basketball. And I would just more so work the games, the events.
Yeah.
But I recently retired as of technically last year because I just wanted to focus more on my business, other things, and me on an individual level. I had done it for several years, and I just felt it was time to move forward and do something differently. Now it's a situation where kids at these schools are telling me to come to their after-school program to see them there just to visit. And the leadership there allowed me to come in and visit because they know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
They know my clearances are clear. And they understand I'm that positive influence that could provide a life for some of these kids because some of them don't have their biological fathers in their life. Either due to incarceration, someone, I just keep it 100, someone being pushed away by their significant other, facing an uphill battle with the court system. Then there's some situations where, a person lives far away and started a whole nother family. And then there's other situations where a child may not know who their biological father is because either the woman who she thought was the father turned out not to be once the DNA test proved he wasn't. So therefore he's free from all parental rights and paying child support. Every law is different from the south to the north to the east to the west.
Yeah. And
I can relate to the kids. I can see myself in the kids to where I could just tell them, hey, I've been through this before. It's just what your experience is, this emotional void of not hearing words of affirmation, receiving gifts, having physical touch from a positive man. Because there's two different types of energy between a man and a woman. A woman has the estrogen energy while the man has the testosterone level. When you combine the two together for the right reasons, a child will feel more loved and balanced. But when you get too much of anything, things are unbalanced. Therefore, a person's not able to find that happy medium. And, there's times where I have to tell them, hey, take a deep breath. You're not alone in this.
Yeah.
You're not the only person who's experienced this situation. But for moving forward, you can learn the tools and the keys to success on how to overcome this type of adversity. And I had to tell them the truth, like, hey, I graduated college, got my first brand new car, wrote my books without my biological parents. Not everybody that comes with you goes with you.
Yeah.
And I tell them there's situations where, hey, I'm at college, I graduated, I see everyone else go with their parents. I don't go with my parents.
Right.
But I'm able to cope with that better because I talk about in the book where I had a 5th grade promotion at Callan Elementary School. I see my cousin with her parents. I see all my classmates with their families being celebrated and embraced, picture taken, but I don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my fault. It wasn't my choice. It's just a situation of co-parenting together.
Yeah.
Now, because I still have family that went to the same school as me, they allowed me to tag along because they didn't want me to be alone. Because some kids, feel like nobody's there, even though they're there physically. Because about having that connection where it's authentic, that doesn't require dictatorship of a relationship, discipline. Because I realized 50% of the parenting can be solved just by listening to the kid, what he wants, showing up to the PTO meetings, IEP meetings, parent-teacher conferences, having conversations with administrators and teachers, doctors, and other fields. Because the information is out there. It's a matter of being able to listen to other voices to speak into you as a parent. Because we can't always do things our way. Because sometimes in life, a kid has to want things for themselves.
Right.
Because we got to allow them to have their own path. We got to allow them to get out of your shadow. Because eventually, if you have a girl, one day she's going to enter two things, womanhood and adulthood. And if she gets married, you're going to walk her down the aisle and give her away. When it comes to your boy, he'll graduate, but he's got to be careful about which woman he wants. And there's certain things about manhood that are not being taught to us enough. And now we wonder why some men are not as masculine, some men are not as manly, because they weren't given the tools to success. Some of them end up learning all this stuff in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and sometimes in their 50s when they're behind the 8 ball. So then we have to really look at what we were really teaching kids on the weekend, besides allowing them to be on social media and television. Did we take them away out of their comfort zone to show them this is what you need to learn about adulthood as a teenager and kid ahead of time? Because when I look at the Amish and Mennonite culture, they make sure their kids are well equipped to be independent as preteens. Even when they started working, they're already financially set because they have invested a lot into those children to the point where they can become homeowners at between 18 and 21 and the parent can co-sign on it. They can already find out who they want to be with in their inner circle of friends. The difference is when it comes to dating fields is that in the Amish Mennonite community, if they're dating inside their community, sometimes, their DNA can be too close and it can cause problems down the road. But I've seen successful marriages to the point where women have lower body counts. When I look at the other...
I'm sorry, what was that? You said women have...
Lower body counts.
What's that mean?
They're not as active with as many men.
Okay.
Because the man hasn't poured into them that, hey, you got to be a one-woman man, and the vice versa is be a one-man woman.
Okay.
And that's why they have more successful marriages that last at least 50 years. They're already equipped to learn how to overcome adversities, such as a woman might experience a miscarriage. They're already prepared to, be there for each other emotionally, physically, mentally. And they also have mentors to learn from. And that's part of the reason why their divorce rate is they rarely divorce.
What if, what do you think about, like, the concept of just, like, not getting married at all?
Well, a man has to look out for his best interest because marriage is a business decision. I repeat, a business decision, because based on statistics, there's an 80% chance of a woman filing for divorce because it goes back to that mindset of the women's rights movement where some women think they're entitled to a man to pay for all this stuff when the reality is you have to earn a man's investment, earn a man's time, just like he has to earn things from you as well. I learned this quote: the most expensive marriages the most expensive weddings have the shortest marriages because they're more focused on having the event of a wedding, a reception, but then take the time to do premarital counseling, air out grievances, air out everything, get to know somebody.
Yeah.
I'm talking about not being in love. I'm not talking about enjoying, being in someone's car or yacht or any area of comfort. I'm talking about getting to know someone at the core.
Yeah.
Because if a person loses their wealth, the only choice from there is to build back up. And characters are going to be tested. Your livelihood is going to be tested to where, do you really want to stay with this person to the point where we can get up and make this work? Or do you want to jump ship, be with somebody else? But that type of decision leads to downfall, because as soon as that person, builds himself back up and you're with the other person, that person could just drop you just like that because you weren't there for building with them. And there's some women who got these unrealistic expectations of a man, but really there's some that don't even know how to cook, dance.
Dancing's essential.
Well,
I'm just curious.
It is, yes or no, but it's a preference based on what a person likes. There's some people, there's different cultures of dancing. There's the salsa, bachata, free dancing, freestyle, classical dancing, wedding dancing, and much more.
So you're saying, like, if a woman doesn't know how to cook and dance, it's like deal breaker? Is that what you're saying?
It's not a deal breaker. It's just that's what a man looks for.
Gotcha. Like as a overall, or like a
it's more
basis?
more on a general level, because a man wants to come home to a home cooked meal, not McDonald's. because the key to a man's heart is through cooking. But I also realize it goes back to the woman where if her parents didn't install in her making sure she knows how to cook, have her life skills, and all this, now you have decreased. Now those parents have not set up their child for success. Same thing with going to invest into the boy as well. If he don't know his mannerisms, his manliness, and his authority and his worth, and know how to be prepared for adversity, his value is not as sustainable as well.
Gotcha.
But just to cut to the chase, getting married, there's biblical reasons behind it saying, why have all these children out of wedlock? I was a child born out of wedlock. I did give my life to Christ. It's May 2009, broke the curse.
I'm sorry, what? You said you broke the curse?
Yeah, because I learned that when a child's born out of wedlock, sometimes they're born with shame. It's like, for example, I'll just use my situation, for example. My dad was already with another woman, in Philadelphia area. They already had a child together. But back home in Coatesville, my mom didn't know any of that. And he got two women pregnant at the same time. That woman, my mom. I have a sister that's born the same year as me, and we're 2 months apart.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of shame that gets brought about that, because why is a man having relations with two different women, or if more, when you're supposed to be committed to one? But also realize, there's certain expectations of, the best way I can say it is just, if a person wants to have sex before marriage, it's best to get STD testing done immediately. And it's best to know, if a person is allergic to latex, is willing to use, I'll just say birth control is optional because it does have side effects. And there's also different condoms and contraceptives out there, whether it's organic, plant-based. Because once a woman announces she's pregnant, it becomes a situation where she got three choices, or even more. Either she could have this baby, whether it's through natural labor or C-section. That's one choice together. Then unfortunately there's, the A word, which is abortion. Or a situation unfortunately can result in a miscarriage. And then another situation can be that woman may not be fit to have a child, and she gives it up for adoption, therefore she gives up the parental rights. And, those are serious choices that, a woman has to make. But at the same time, it goes back to the foundation she stands on, because I realize some women speak subliminal. They expect the man to read between the lines or leave certain cues. As for a man's more straightforward sometimes, but he's still learning about himself along the way. Because the way we are as a teenager is not the same as in our 20s, 30s, or 40s, or 50s, or 60s and beyond. Because a person's supposed to continue to evolve in their life, not the same and be stuck in one place. Because in order to become successful, a person has to step outside their comfort zone. And that's what it took for me to overcome my adversities, of stepping outside my comfort zone, with overcoming that near-fatal car accident, being a self-published author, graduating from HAC, which is Harrisburg Area Community College, Mills University. Because me personally, when I recovered from that stuff, from the car accident, I thought, hey, I got this job here. I can work. I got my license. I got my car. I can go off in the sunset. But life has a way of pushing me outside my comfort zone, because I never intended to speak about all this stuff, because I just wasn't ready.
Right.
And it wasn't until I did this interview recently where I realized why I was experiencing all these emotional highs and lows in years past with my anniversary from the car accident, which is March 19th. I realized I was going through survivor's remorse.
Yeah.
And that hit me in a point where I'm like, oh, that explains why those emotions in the past were just there.
Right.
I didn't know I was still feeling remorseful that I survived a car accident and 2 people passed away and I wasn't able to attend their funerals.
Yeah.
That just hit me to the core where I'm like, if that was something I was experiencing then, that could be something someone else is experiencing if they lose a loved one, a child, or a neighbor, or someone that was close to them. That survivor's remorse really, kicks in. And, unfortunately, some people are strong enough to cope with that and move forward and eventually live their life. And there's some people who turn to things that they're not supposed to for their mental health. And they have to be willing to, face things and ask themselves the truth or get support through family counseling, therapy. Because we can't hold on to that survivor's remorse, but we can hold on to the memories of the person that was near and dear to us.
Yeah, for sure. Well said. Well, hey, I wanted to, I know we could probably keep talking for a while, but I definitely got a good idea of what I can learn more about in the book. We're going to wrap this up here shortly. I got another session here starting soon. Thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. I do really appreciate it. I hope you've had a good time here chatting it up. Where can the people find you? You mentioned your website earlier. I can roll out the plugs here for you.
My website is called ethanspeaks.com. My username handles for Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat is Ethan Poetic 23. It's spelled ETHAN POETIC 23. My Twitter is Ethan V 23. And professionally on LinkedIn, I am Ethan Poetic, ETHAN POETIC. Location Lancaster, PA. Then I also have an Ethan Poetic Facebook page, where I promote, inspirational things, videos, and true facts. It has over 3,000 likes and some subscribers, or at least followers. Then on my regular page is Ethan Vaughn, ETHAN. My former last name Vaughn, VAUGHN. Somehow Facebook hasn't decided to change my last name legally on there, even though I legally changed my last name to Poetic since the summer of 2021. Then my YouTube is Ethan Poetic 23. We will see a variety of videos from my speeches of being a college graduate, certain awards, achievements, and accolades I've achieved, and special moments that I decided to share with people, not to boast. It's more about showing people the continuing journey of the best is yet to come. Because I realize I have a lot of impact in people's life, whether I know it or not, and not that I intended to be. It's just something that happens. And I think that's all my social media handles.
Sweet. Well, thanks again for coming on the podcast, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.